Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joel Amadon.
And I'm Ann Monroe.
And this is The Teacher's Journey, Mile Markers on the Road to Better Teaching, a podcast series where we discuss stories of teacher development.
This podcast is brought to you by the University of Mississippi School of Education and is an Amadon Planet production.
All right, this is it. We get a double feature today with an outstanding guest, a legend in the Oxford School District. We have Patches Calhoun. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is exciting. And I'll tell you this, I've been a big fan for longtime fan, first time caller, something like that of you and your work. I know the great stuff you've done for our teacher candidates when you were in the classroom as a math teacher, and then seeing all your great work as a now educational leader, as both an assistant principal and now principal at Della Davidson Elementary School, an outstanding school.
Ooh, I don't know. That's some big words.
And I was excited to, kind of threw it out there. Hey, you want to come on a podcast? And great. Yeah.
I think it was one morning walking Wednesday. I was doing duty and you were like, hey, you want to do this?
That's right. Sure. Yeah. I'm getting all these kids safely the volunteers are getting these kids safely to school. Hey, how about doing a podcast?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're just going to jump into it. We're going to try and do something a little bit. You're actually our first educational leader to be on the podcast. And we know we want to talk about educational leaders having these moments, these mile markers of development. And so let's just get into it. Hey, can you thank a teacher or two who have shaped your development as a person?
I absolutely can thank a teacher. This is a teacher from my time in college that had a huge impact on my life, and it was Dr. Angela Barlow.
Yeah.
She came into my life like a wrecking ball, and then from that moment, she just influenced me to change as a teacher. Changed completely what I was doing in my math classrooms. So she really had. So thank you, Dr. Barlow. I know she's going to be listening.
That's right. Yeah,
we love Dr. Barlow.
That's right. And that's second time we've heard Dr. Barlow on the podcast. But you know what? I did fast forward a little bit too much. Hey, can you just give a little self-introduction? I'm sorry. I went super fast.
Gotcha. So normally a self-introduction is not needed for me because my name's Patches Calhoun. I am originally from Calhoun City, so I'm not from Oxford, but I've lived here for the last, I would say, 20 years. I have been in education this is my 21st year. I taught in the classroom for 17 years. I taught fourth grade math 15 of those years, and I taught third grade math 2 of those years. And then I became the assistant principal here in the same building where I was a teacher, did that for 3 years, and then got the opportunity to move into the role of the principal in the building. And it has been a journey.
Right. Awesome.
That's just what this podcast is all about, right?
Oh, yeah. Roller coaster, up and down, up and down.
Yes.
So what led you, what's an event that led you to become a teacher?
I took a different path in life where I went to college for a lot of different things before I decided what I wanted to do. So I really was not one of those people who grew up saying, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. I don't have any teachers in my immediate family. And so actually one day somebody just suggested, that I should think about going into it. So then it kind of stayed on my mind. I was at Ole Miss doing music and just decided that was not for me. I was not enjoying that, and I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. So I decided to go into the education building, the School of Education, just to visit. And from the moment I walked in, everybody was so nice. People were so willing to help. And I just started the program, and everything from that point fell into place. So I didn't say, oh, I want to be a teacher. But once I got into it, there was nothing else that I wanted to do. Absolutely nothing else. I knew this is what I'm supposed to be doing for life. So.
And I think, Patches, and I think I'm right on this timeline, but when I came to the University of Mississippi and was a graduate assistant, I believe you were a senior that year.
I think so. I do.
Because I remember you in the hallways. I did not have you in class, but I remember you in the hallways because Patches. I was like, there's a person named Patches
Right.
in Mississippi. I was like, I'm from Tennessee. That sounds Tennessee-like.
Yeah.
But so that, and then two, everybody knew who Patches was. It was like one of those things like, I can't believe you ever didn't realize you wanted to be a teacher, because you have that, to me, that personality that just says, I am a teacher. But I mean, like, did not have you in class, had never had you in class. I was a graduate assistant, but I knew who Patches Calhoun was.
Right.
Just from walking the halls. But I don't know when you graduated, but I'm guessing it was maybe 2002.
It was I think 2000.
2000. Okay. So I came in 2001. I don't know if you were in grad school at that time, but I could have sworn you were a senior.
I was. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to look at my diplomas hanging on the wall right here.
Did you graduate in a December or a May?
I graduated in May. Isn't that terrible that I can't see when I graduated? Here, 2001.
There you go. Okay.
2001.
There you go.
That's great. And I love that, if I wanted to enjoy what I was doing, if anyone has seen evidence that like, interact with, like, you enjoy what you do. And like, that's, we describe joy. I describe joy as an unshakable happiness that emerges from within. And it's like that, someone that enjoys what they're doing.
That is what I feel daily. And I guess that it just took me the weird path to get to teaching. But like I said, once I got into it, it was just natural. That was what I was supposed to be doing. Everything fell into place. Life just started being, hey, Patches, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be serving kids. So, nice. Yeah.
Well, and again, we're on the continuous journey, like the journey from teaching to educational leader. But could you, just rewind a little bit, and we're going to go back to when your role as a teacher, and thinking about, can you place a mile marker? What was a moment that you would identify as like, this was a moment that I grew as a teacher?
Yeah. So I think it was in 2010, the University of Mississippi, through the Math and Science Center, started doing these summer institutes with math teachers. The first time that I saw it, it was not called Project Prime. I'm going to talk about what mine was, which was Project Prime. It was something else right before that I can't remember.
Project Delta, maybe?
Yes, that was
there
it.
You go.
And so at that point, it only went to fifth grade teachers. And so it was not offered to fourth grade teachers. Della at that time was a fifth and fourth grade building. So I got to see some of the fifth grade teachers doing these different things, and I became interested in it. And so I signed up. The next year they offered it. They changed it to Project Prime, and they offered it for grades 4 through 8. And so going to that summer institute completely transformed me as a teacher. It changed the way I thought about teaching. It changed everything about what I did inside my classroom. I'm a person that needs to experience something in order to know how it really works. And through the institute, the teachers were the students. And so we went into class every day. We did the problems that we were supposed to take back to our classrooms and do. And so I got to feel it. I got to understand the process. And so I just began at that point changing what I was doing in my classroom, and was not even the same teacher.
So what would you even drill down even further? Is there something that you would use to like represent that moment of growth from Project Prime?
Yeah, probably the different tasks that we were given. Working on those tasks myself. I know there's this one problem that we did, the locker problem. I recall us spending lots of time having discussion, talking about it, and it just challenged what you were thinking. And so, I don't know, just all of the different tasks that required me to think. I knew that is what I was supposed to get my kids to do. Awesome. There should be struggle. I should be, having to think outside the box, understanding that there's different ways to get the same answer. So I don't know necessarily a specific, but those problems that we did, I would say those changed me.
Well, it's great. And we talked about this before we hit record, but I mean, that locker problem is funny because like I'm going to your school tomorrow in an attempt to try to teach that problem with students in Ms. Humphrey's class. And so like, that's kind of great. But like thinking about a kind of task like that, it's a hands-on task in order to understand like factors and multiples, and they get to talk about prime numbers. Like, but these things arise organically from the student work. And we'll post a link to that problem in the show notes too. We have show notes patches. So
good.
Yeah, fancy. So why was this? Sorry, Ann, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say good luck with that Dr. Amadon tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to go. I think I'm going to sit in there so I can do the problem with them.
There you go. Yeah. That'd be fun. Right. And so so why was that important to you in your development as a teacher?
I guess before that, I was teaching processes, just steps to math problems. We were not having discussion about math in my classroom. I was in charge and I led, and the kids just followed. And I think that during Project Prime, that is when I started realizing that they are the ones that should be immersed in the math, not myself. They should be discovering things and investigating and noticing making observations about things. And pretty much me just kind of stepping back and facilitating and not being in charge. And, I'm going to be honest, that was scary at first. It was real scary to step back and let there be a little bit of chaos, controlled chaos, and then bring everybody back together and discuss what we learned. So I just think that it really made me see that kids needed to understand what they were doing. And the only way they could understand what they were doing is if they were doing it.
Awesome. And what's cool is that exactly what you're describing, the Mississippi Department of Education created a video that that one of my students went and found, and we're going to link in the show notes as well. So people can actually see what this looks like. What does that actually look like in a class? Because I mean, and I remember from my perspective, that was kind of my perspective as a teacher, like what I got as a student. And then I was forced to, from early on in my teaching career, like do things with groups and stuff. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, like I'm not at the board. What? And like,
yeah. Right. And then that helped me, changing myself helped me change others. So there was like a ripple effect of my experience, for the other teachers that worked in Della, because I would come back and share what I learned. I would challenge them with what they were doing in their classrooms. I got a lot of people to join Project Prime the next year. So we had almost every one of our fourth grade teachers that next year had joined Project Prime to go through it. It was a 4-year program, but I think they only did it for 3 years. I only did it for 3 years. Yeah. So anyway, me changing also helped me change other people, which in return impacted a lot more kids than just my classroom.
And one thing interesting too, Patches, with you and just your personality as well. But I wonder how much the fact that you had been teaching for a little while made an impact on how that Project Prime really impacted you. Can you talk a little bit about that and where it was in your career, how far you had, that you had some experience and what that meant to you in terms of your own professional development and where you were, and then also the outreach you had with other teachers?
Yeah. So I was I guess probably like my 9th or 10th year of teaching. And I don't know, kids change, things change. I just wanted to grow personally. I don't remember anything. Let me say this. It was seeing other people do things too. So other people seeing me do something helped them change, but I was seeing what the 5th grade teachers were doing in their classroom. And I just was intrigued and interested in like, what can I do to do better? What can I do to be better for kids? And I don't know. I've just always been a person that wanted to be better every single day at whatever I'm doing. I'm never satisfied. That's a terrible thing and a good thing.
Yeah. And pun intended, but it was almost like because you had experience, you were primed for Project Prime, meaning like you were talking about having the kids take control. I mean, you have to really know how to manage a classroom to have that work effectively, right? So I just think that maybe that your experience was like this wonderful foundation to take that learning from Project Prime and just have it take off like a rocket, because you had all those kind of basics in place.
Right. That's true. I had my 10 years of, I knew the things that I wanted, how things to run in my classroom. So I wasn't dealing with classroom management. I wasn't dealing with procedures and processes. That was there. But I will say your classroom changes when you start letting kids be in charge a little bit of their learning. And so you do have to figure out how to manage that. Because I knew how to manage a classroom where everybody's sitting there and listening to me. So I had to figure out how to run a classroom where everybody was not sitting there listening to me.
It's like
but
I do think
I do think those 9 to 10 years of experience did help me do that and focus on the change as a teacher, like the math, the focus of the teaching of the math.
That's great.
And that gets right into our next question, like, why is this important to the field? And so that's the standards that it connects to. And it seems like these are screaming two standards, the two content standards from the INTAS standards. It's the content knowledge and application content. I don't know. Did you have any other ones, Patches, that you were looking at?
I was looking at number 9 too, just the teacher engagement.
Oh, yeah.
You have to want to grow yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't wait on somebody else to grow you. You have to want to grow yourself, and you have to find times and places where you can do that. Even if it's just going next door to see the teacher next door, you have to want to be better.
Yeah. And these are the INTASC core teaching standards that we're pointing to. Mm-hmm. Standard 4 and 5 with the content, and then standard 9 with the professional responsibility. And I think that's really like what you said, Patches, about you have to want to do it. It's part of teaching. It's part of good teaching is, like you said, you just have always been the type of person that wants to do better, but that's also part of being a good teacher.
Right.
Is it's continuous improvement, learning things that are new that, while humanity is humanity and we deal with humanity as teachers, there are developments in teaching and new things that we try and new things that we do. And, the art and science of teaching progresses, and keeping up with that is really, really important and part of our professional responsibility.
Right. As a leader right now of the building, I tell my teachers, if you're doing what you did 5 years ago in the classroom, you're behind. You're really behind.
Yeah.
If you're still doing even what you did last year, you're behind. You have to continue to grow and learn and figure out ways to be better. So don't be behind, get ahead.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, that's a good transition. I mean, I love that, your own mile marker of development as a teacher. I mean, it points to these professional development opportunities, and now you as a educational leader, like, have recognition of it. And I think one thing that Dr. Monroe and I are recognizing is a lot of our people on this podcast have pointed out these summer professional development opportunities as meaningful in their, like, they identified one artifact badge, and they identify these like summer institutes. We're like, these are pretty important things. Mm-hmm. So, but let's think about it from an educational leader standpoint. Again, this is our first opportunity to talk to someone on this podcast from an educational leader perspective. So what would be something, a mile marker you would place in your journey as an educational leader? What's a moment that you would describe that's a mile marker of your growth as an educational leader?
The reason I wanted to become an assistant principal was because of being able to advocate for kids that didn't have somebody to advocate for them. Trying to understand those kids that struggled in the classroom. So I would just say probably an experience with a kid helped me to see that what I was doing was the right thing. Like, you're in the right place, Patches, because this is what you're here for. The student had got it. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one day we had a substitute here at Della, and a student who normally gets in trouble was getting fussed at by that teacher because another student that doesn't get in trouble went and told on that student for marking on her paper or whatnot. And so the student that normally gets in trouble tried to tell the sub that that person did it first. It wasn't me. But since that kid was a kid who normally gets in trouble, what are they going to do? They're going to blame that kid. That kid's in trouble. The kid ran out of the classroom and ran straight to my office to tell me this is what happened. And at that moment, I said, kids just want to be listened to. Even if it was that student did something wrong, really and truly, he just wanted somebody to listen to his side of the story. And so at that point, Miss Harrington used to laugh at me because I would spend so much time on talking to students about discipline. It could be the smallest thing that they did, and we may talk about it for 20 minutes, but it was that I wanted to listen to their side. I wanted to discuss it. I wanted to help them figure out a different way to do that next time. And so at that moment, I was just like, I got to listen. I got to listen to kids. I've got to advocate for the kids who are the kids who get in trouble a lot, but they're not the ones who always do something. And so what can I do to make that different? So I felt that I could use my role as a leader in the building to help start changing how teachers viewed kids and how they responded to kids when there was disruption in the classroom or a kid did something wrong. So that was probably my biggest focus as an assistant principal. So I guess that was a moment when I said, you're doing the right thing and let's continue this. I don't know. Am I answering the question?
Yeah. Well, and then, and we're brainstorming because like this, again, you're our first time we're talking about education, like what could represent, like what would be an artifact to represent that moment. And we talked about possibly like a picture of kids, like, a picture of, like a class picture or something like that, or that's brought, but just to focus in on like that. And I think you mentioned like the student-centered, hearing students out, like knowing that they're being heard. I mean, the fact that kid, how many kids are running to the principal's office? I mean, right. Literally, like that's.
Well, he knew that he could come tell me something, and he just wanted somebody to listen because he didn't do it. So yeah, he ran. He did get in trouble for leaving the classroom and running, out of the classroom, but he just wanted her to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would be. I would put, if I had to put something in a portfolio that represented that, it would most definitely be a picture of kids.
Nice. And so again, and think about you kind of answered this a little bit, but let's just, go right at it. Why was this important to your development as your important? Yeah, I can talk. Why was this mile marker important to your growth as an educational leader?
Because I had to find my happy place as an assistant principal. In the classroom, you have lots of little happy moments, like this kid gets it, that kid gets it. A parent tells you that you're doing a good job. They appreciate, so you have all of these little happy moments in the classroom all the time that keep you going. And I found out in the AP position, you don't have those happy moments that I had as the teacher. You don't have somebody telling you all the time, good job or whatever. You're putting the fires out and dealing with the bad things a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I had to find my happy place and my happy moments and my just sparks for the day. And that was where I decided those are my happy moments. I was able to listen to a kid, help him change what happened on a daily basis. I just listening to kids and helping teachers view what's happening in their classrooms differently. No kids saying, I want to come to school and be bad.
Right.
They're not waking up and saying, hey, I'm just going to go to school and be bad today. So I don't know. I would think that was important for me to find my happy moments, because I think that if I wouldn't have found my happy moments, I'm not sure I would have stayed in a leadership role. I might have decided to go back to the classroom. I have some friends who have been in the AP role or are still in the AP role. And like, I'm actually going to share that advice of it, like the finding the happy moments. Cause that exactly what you described is like a lot of the assistant principal roles are going to take that. That's, all right. I'm glad we're doing this podcast. That's great. Hey. That's great stuff right there. So good stuff.
so being important to the field. So this is where we're aligning this with standards. And so what standards are we using for this, Ann? Like, you know, the acronyms here. So
right. We've got the NELP standards, the National Educational Leadership Preparation Standards. And we've got the PSEL standards, the professional standards for educational leaders. So, you know, take your pick, Patches. What do you think?
I would say something that has to do with relationships.
And there's a NELP standard. And I don't know if this is helpful, but there's a NELP standard 3, equity, inclusiveness, and cultural responsiveness. It's to the current and future success and well-being of each student and adult by applying the knowledge, skills, and commitments necessary to develop and maintain a supportive, equitable, and culturally responsive and inclusive school culture. And that sounds like something that's really important to you and what you know, at the heart of your happiness, right?
It is. That is
making sure that there's environment for everybody at school.
Exactly.
That's a supportive place.
Yes.
And also, I was looking at standard 2 to promote the current and future. It's ethics and professional norms to promote the current and future success and well-being of each student. And just, you know, and it says it by applying the knowledge and skills and commitments necessary to understand and demonstrate the capacity to advocate for ethical decision and cultivate and enact professional norms. And I don't know if that's exactly right, but like thinking about the advocating and the, you know, putting these skills to think about the well-being of our students, like, hey, you know, I'm just not here to enact punishment. I'm here to communicate with this kid. They're being heard and we care about them. And it's more than just, you know, just providing a punishment. Like that's you have
to realize when kids, and I've read this before, so I'm stealing it from somebody. So when kids can't read, we teach them how to read. When kids can't do math, we teach them how to do math. But when kids can't behave, we want to punish them. Right. You know, and so we can't. That can't be it. We have to also spend the time on that problem to teach them what would have been a better response, or how could I have handled this in a better way. So you have to teach behavior. Yes,
absolutely. And one of the things that I talk to my pre-service teachers about is that one of my big pet peeves is teachers who complain about student behavior. And I say, that's like going to a doctor's office and the doctor complaining about having to see ill patients. Like if I have to see one more sick person again, like that would be outrageous for a doctor. That's their job. And so a teacher, part of your job is to teach behavior and to teach students how to control their own behavior, not for me to control your behavior. So punishment is me controlling you with some sort of external, you know, motivator, whatever it is. I want to teach you how to control your own behavior, to teach you to be your own, you know, motivator, have some internal motivation to seek out better for yourself.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and through being an AP, that's what I wanted to model for teachers. You know, I would spend time talking with the kid in front of the teacher, not just taking the kid, because I wanted to model, this is how you respond. This is how you should talk about it. Even the smallest thing, you've got to address it and help them think about it in a different way. So, yes.
Yeah. And I think this is something that Joel and I have had conversation before on the podcast and even on his other podcast station, which we can plug here. But we've talked to he's like a triple dipper with the podcast, actually. But one of the things that we've talked about, and I think this kind of encompasses both of your artifacts that you talked about, the one as a teacher about getting the kids working the problems themselves and giving ownership to the problem solving to the kids, and also your leadership example about listening to the kids and talking about having them control their own behaviors. It's this idea that as adults, as caregivers, as teachers, our job is not to control and take power over our students. Right. Our job is to make sure that our kids feel empowered, to lead them toward taking control of their behavior, control of their learning, to show them how to do that, to teach them, to be the guide. We want them to have the power. We want them to have the choice. We want them to have the control. We want them to do this. And so I think a lot of times in teaching, and I know that I'm hearing this in everything that you're saying, Patches, and I know from personal experience with you that you have this same philosophical belief that we're not to use our power over children. Absolutely not. That we are to teach children we're to empower the children that are within our care. And it's just such an important part of teaching. I think a lot of times we have it backwards in schools. And we want to, to use power over children when that is not what our job is.
Right. Absolutely not. Relationships over academics, 100% all the time. Relationships. And when you have relationships with kids, that's your way into the academics. At that point, that's where you help them have the power for themselves. And you don't feel like that you have to have power over them because of that relationship.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, kids will do things for you that they won't do for themselves just because of that relationship they have with you. Especially my age kids, 3rd and 4th graders, they're going to do something. They're going to do something for me more than they want to do it for themselves. We just recently had 100% of our students at Della Davidson meet their AR goal. There are kids.
Amazing.
That had never, from 4th grade, never in 3rd grade the whole year had met their AR goal ever. There were teachers that never had a 100% of their kids in their class meet their AR goal. And it just, I don't know, just made everybody feel good. And now we're halfway through and we already have classes that have met 100% of their AR goal. Awesome. Kids were taking on that now. They felt a little success. They saw that we were proud of them. The teachers were proud. The school celebrated so much. So if they don't want to do it for themselves, they at least are wanting to do it for us so they can come tell us so we can do a 30-second dance party,
I love
those dance parties. Those are awesome.
Dr. Amadon, we could start those here.
That's right. 30-second dance party.
Hey,
that's our new initiative. That's our new initiative.
I have a button and you press it and for 30 seconds it plays music and then it cuts off. So 30-second dance parties can change a meeting.
Oh, it's going to change. It's going to change Guyton Hall. So it's going to change.
I think Dr. Monroe is going to be on Etsy looking for that button immediately.
I might have
Oh, you may have one. Okay, well, I may have to hit you up for that. I'll be at the Della Davidson overhang on the drive-through, the portico shortly.
30-second dance party.
So we'll go briefly through, and again, we value your time, and we've already maybe gotten a little bit of it. But do you have a pocket-sized philosophy statement that guides what you do?
I would just say that I believe relationships come first. I believe that our job as teachers is to foster the love of learning. I believe that teachers have to meet kids where they are, especially today coming out of COVID and kids being on so many different levels. It's our responsibility to meet those kids where they are, to immerse kids into the learning in the classroom and make them in charge of their learning, take on the responsibility of their learning, that shared responsibility. But I would say most definitely for me, relationships are number one, most important.
I think we can see how these have the influence of these or the influence of your mile markers on that statement. It's like the philosophy of patches. That sounds like it should be a book or something like that. Like
relationships.
That's right. Exactly. Well, we want to thank you again for your time. Thank you for being willing to do a double header in the middle of a day. We appreciate that. But also we want to say thank you for all of you listeners out there for tuning into the Teacher's Journey, mile markers on the road to better teaching.
This episode may be over, but the journey to better teaching continues. So please subscribe to the podcast so you're notified when the next episode's ready for you to listen to. And if you like what you hear, please rate and review the podcast. You can also share the podcast with someone you feel may be interested in these stories of teacher development.
And are you ready to start your journey to better teaching? Send an email to Nick Sisk, nickf@olemiss.edu, the School of Education Admissions Counselor, to hear about all the options for becoming a teacher or educational leader. And perhaps you are well into your journey and looking to further advance as a practitioner or researcher in your field. For more information on all of our graduate programs, contact the University of Mississippi School of Education's Graduate Studies Office by sending an email to gradeducation@olemiss.edu.
Also, follow the University of Mississippi School of Education on social media at Ole Miss Ed School on Twitter and Instagram, so you can learn more about opportunities like free graduate application weekends. Information can be found in the show notes for this episode at roadtobetterteaching.com. And finally, thank you to Patches Calhoun for sharing her portion of her journey as both a teacher and school leader.
Thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed my time with you guys.
Yeah. And thank you to all you listeners out there for taking the journey to better teaching. This world is a better place because you have used the gifts you've been given to teach others.